let's pivot now. We're going to talk about reservations, park reservations. This is a fascinating topic because this is everyone. I mean, I don't know of anyone who really likes the reservation system, but we're going to dive into it. Ron, I'm going to start with you. What are your overall? I did watch your video, by the way, the Fresh Fade podcast on the reservation system. Fascinating stuff in regards to that. But just kind of give everyone at home to kind of like a little background. What are your overall thoughts on this whole system?
Are you asking me as a key holder that just wants to go to Disneyland, or are you asking me from the business standpoint why they're doing it?
Let's take each.
Let's start with being a key holder. Like as you, as a Disney consumer, as a guest, how do you feel about it?
The reservation system, I get. It doesn't bother me from the standpoint of making a reservation just makes sense. First of all, it behooves both sides because in theory, what it's supposed to do is enable the park to be more efficient operationally. So when I'm showing up, going through lines to get mobile orders, to get food, to get things, and just to navigate through the park in general, in theory, it should be a very well-oiled, high-performance operation. So right. the user experience, it should be better with a reservation system in place. As far as making the reservation, I don't have a problem with making the reservation, with the major, massive caveat that they were very misleading in going from the Magic or the annual pass, level annual pass, to now the highest level Dream Key, where I am not getting a guaranteed entrance into the park. And, I schedule out all 6 of mine, and that's the problem that it creates is everybody is doing that. So all the reservations are kind of booked. So people that are looking to make a trip can't necessarily do it because they're booked and they're not going to cancel till the day of, or the day before, I should say. So I don't know. I don't have a problem per se with it. Do I like it now? No. I mean, I would prefer that it not be there, but I completely understand why they would have a reservation, because from their standpoint, the information that they're being provided is gold.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah.
From a business perspective, it's freaking genius. It's genius, From a guest perspective, yeah. Like I'm with you, Ron, on that. Like I've never personally had too many issues with the reservation system, but I can see the issue. Sure. Look, they sell you these annual passes or Magic Keys now, and they tell you, okay, if you get this pass, there's no blockout dates. But the caveat is that you have to have a reservation. So the reservation system in and of itself is a blackout thing, right? Because there's always the possibility, and it happens quite a bit, where you're not going to get that reservation that you want. So you're blocked out. You're locked out of going. And hence the class action lawsuit and the whole thing. So
it's the spontaneity.
Right. The spontaneity. It's completely gone. What do you think, Dre? As a guest, from business perspective?
No, it's, the spontaneity is completely correct, right? Especially for the Southern California market. I mean, Disneyland is a way of life out there, right? It's part of the culture. It's embedded into that fabric that is Southern California. So when you I don't know, is the word gatekeep? I mean, maybe it is. In that way, it is kind of a change of lifestyle. Now, Ron, I do agree with you, right? From a business perspective, and even for a guest perspective, it could be good, right? If they limit capacity, the idea is, well, if you limit capacity enough, it's pleasurable for all, right? It's better for everybody. But it's kind of interesting when the sales pitch came out that was the goal. I was always like in the back of my mind, man, if they can load these parks up, they're going to load these parks up. And sure enough, I'm looking at the wait times right now. 85 minutes for Indiana Jones, 85 minutes for Rise of Resistance, 65 minutes for Splash Mountain. They're back up to pre-Pandy levels. So it's like, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah. A big part of that, though, that's also a little bit misleading is many things within the park are not open. For one thing, the entire Toontown now is not open. But all these people eating elements that the park usually has, sure. I mean, Splash Mountain just opened. There's things that have just recently reopened that haven't, that just eat people. So now there's less people in the park. So that's why they're 85%. They're not at 100%, but it feels like it.
But
Right.
yeah, that's true. But wouldn't you want to maintain that? Like, doesn't the reservation system give you the ability to take that information into account and then set aside your capacity based on the activities and services that you can provide on any given day, right? We shouldn't see bumps in attraction wait times no matter what happens, because that should already be taken into account with the reservation system. That's the flexibility this kind of thing provides you. Go ahead, OG. You want to say something?
Well, I think with the wait times,
Mhm.
that's a whole other animal, because
That's a lightning lane conversation.
Yes,
right,
that's true.
exactly. They're monetizing that now, so that
Right.
there's a vested interest in that, keeping that standby long.
But that's true. I guess the reason why you would go to wait times is because that can give you maybe information about how busy the park is, or at least that's how maybe regular consumers can think of it. Obviously, in-park conditions will provide you, like, okay, how cluttered are the walkways, so to speak, like how many people are inhabiting the space at any given time. I do agree with you. Wait times can kind of be a bad indicator of that. But I mean, I've heard reports. I don't know about you, Ron. I've heard reports that these parks are super busy, right? That everybody's walking around like crazy. Filling up walkways, and we're now getting changes to New Orleans Square as a result of that. And it's like,
Right.
I thought the reservation system was going to solve these problems, so if it's not necessarily good for the guests, why are we doing it?
Right.
Yeah.
My experience in the parks, and we talk about this all the time, like the fact that, so you're right, they should be better, more tuned in, and account for how many bodies are not going to be in a particular area because that area is no longer available, and then factor that into the whole overall count of people in the parks. So the park does feel busy in the walkways, and people are saying it's back to pre-pandemic levels. It just, the only point I was trying to make with that is people say that, and it does feel like that, but that's simply because there's less attractions open, which makes longer lines in other areas and more people in the main walkways. So they're just not there yet because we're still not 100% quite back yet. But even when we are, though, the problems are still going to persist because, like you said, the lightning lane, and it's being monetized, and this gets into the whole business side where it's seats on an airplane. They're just going to start moving that number around, that lightning lane number around. They've already gone from what's going to be individual lightning lane to what's no longer going to be. Like, they're just trying to figure it out on the fly at our expense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing too is, and I know you, Ron, you guys covered this on Fresh Baked, the no-show penalty. They're gonna start enforcing that, right? So you can't can't squat, like you can't make a bunch of reservations and then like just not show up, right? Like they're gonna start enforcing this no-show policy where, like, if you don't show up, I think it's 3 times, they kind of dock your pass where you're restricted then.
Yeah, you can't make a reservation.
It's for a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you get 3. I mean, you get 3 strikes. I don't know. You know, what's a good question, which I should look into, is when it resets. So I'm, you know what I mean? When I have 3 strikes, now I can't go to the park for the next 30 days. However, when does that reset? When do I get my 3 strikes back? After those 30 days? Because that's a pretty easy thing. That's something that can be taken advantage of. And even to that point, making a reservation, I talked a lot about this on the podcast, but making the reservation, like I have reservations for every Saturday for the next 6 weeks. And then tomorrow when I use it, I'm going to have another one. And sometimes if I go a different time, I just cancel the last one, and you know what I mean? So I'm playing cancel and reserve games all day long. And I may not go tomorrow now because my son has other things that he needs to do. So I actually might have to cancel, but I'm not canceling till late tonight anyway. But the point with that is a lot of people already have predetermined if they're going to go, and they see that there's no reservation. Somebody's going to get it. It just throws a monkey wrench into things when the world, it feels ugly that the whole world is playing a horde reservations. And then if I decide I don't want to, just cancel at the last second, somebody will get it, kind of thing. It just feels gross.
No, I completely agree. It does feel gross, and I'm glad they're sort of enforcing that, because it definitely gives people kind of hesitation, kind of like a pause to like squat on reservations, and hey, look, if I can't make that day, I'll be a little more hesitant now to make that reservation if So it's absolutely a thing. I think Disney really, I think what they wanted, I don't think they really want to go back to the days of like just having, because back before the reservations, the annual passes, the annual pass holders were able to go kind of like, well, not kind of, but they were able to go whenever they wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the parks were packed. But I think Disney, and Chapek talks a lot of it about this, like yield and all that, yield management, whatever. I think they want to make the most out of each guest, right?
Yes.
So they don't want to have just a bunch of bodies in the park that don't spend a lot of money, right? They want to have, if you're going to go, they want to make sure you're spending the money. And I think they feel like with the reservation system, if there's some sort of like, if there's stakes involved, like, oh, it took me forever to get the reservation, so now we're going to spend the whole day there, we're going to eat dinner there, the whole thing. I think they feel like they can make more money out of it. Whereas opposed to like, if there's no reservation and you can just show up, there's less stakes involved. I can go for 2 hours and leave, you know, it's less money for them.
True. I mean, that's, yes. That is true, but at the same time, it's you know, I mean, there's still annual pass holders. You're not going to spend the whole day there, so it's like if you're dealing out slots by the day and not by the hour, not by the minute, like it used to be, are you not necessarily capitalizing on somebody by denying them entry for the entire day versus maybe denying them entry for a couple of hours, right? How it used to work, at least on the busiest days of the year. I mean, my feeling on it is, I think you're right, OG. I think they want to kind of readjust the annual pass kind of population of the park on an annual basis, right? And kind of normalize that. So, instead of it being 75% of guest attendance that day, maybe it's 50-50. Right, but then what we're experiencing now is it's now being it's an impediment to visitation from guests buying day tickets as well. I've talked about this numerous times on the show before. It's like people cannot get days that they need for their vacations, or can't get days that they want, maybe for a spontaneous visit or so forth. My feeling, and there's ways to do it, right? Instead of having maybe the cutoff not be midnight, maybe it be like right before park opening. That way, if you have a reservation, you can cancel it at a kind of a later time if you know you're not going to show up, kind of thing. Maybe you got to rework these systems a little bit
I think they're playing manipulation games, which is smart business wise, though, where they have a 90-day window, and people that are coming in or buying the single day tickets or the trip tickets, 3-4 package, whatever it is, that are not pass holders, essentially, those ticket allotments per day, and they see the numbers, and they have a 90-day window, but on any given day or week, however they want to play it, they're just backfilling. They're using the reservation system is keeping Magic Keys out of the park until they're filling space with them. So depending on how many individual tickets go, which is 2 different buckets entirely already. So yeah, to your point, I mean, they're certainly trying to maximize its demand pricing. And that's why I think we're going to see a lot of pricing games coming down the road. They've been talking about it. They've been saying it. And I've studied revenue management recently in the last few years, just because I had to. And what the research that I had to do, I did specific to theme parks, and it's come to find out, and since like the 90s and the 2000s, at least the documents that I had read, is where they had always been talking about, scholars are recommending this sort of a yield management system within the theme parks, but it has never been possible, because the one caveat for yield management to be effective is demand, and you can't have demand unless you have an X number of fixed perishable inventory, which is a plane ticket or a hotel room, right? There's only 100 rooms on the Galactic Star Cruiser. Correct. And it's perishable if they only have 90 of them full. There's 10. So if a reservation system is in place, now the point, I bring that up not to say that it will happen, but the reservation system has brought Disney closer than ever before to that sort of variable pricing. And that's what's interesting, is it doesn't mean it's going to happen, and it very well may not. It's just that if it does, nobody can say that the writing was not on the wall, because they've told us yield management, they've told us demand pricing enables them to do essentially what they want, and they're already practicing on us with Lightning Lane. So doesn't mean it's going to happen, but if it's never been closer than it is right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
they've been beta testing this stuff and kind of slow rolling it out even before Chapek took over. Like with the
Flex Pass.
With what? I'm sorry.
Flex Pass.
Yes, and even like with the opening of Galaxy's Edge, with you needed a reservation and all that. Mm-hmm. They've been kind of getting us prepped for this inevitability. You know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well. No, I mean, if we've heard from Christine Waistlines McCarthy, the CFO of Disney for the last couple of quarterly calls, I mean, she talks about how these options for our guests give us more, gives them more flexibility and hey, what some guests, when it comes to Lightning Link, some guests have more time than money, and some guests have more money than time, kind of thing, and it's this kind of I don't know. It's a little bit of this kind of classist system coming in Disneyland, and I understand. I get it. I totally get. As far as revenue wise, is what you were talking about, Ron. Like that's the way to go for sure. It's just when you deny somebody, and I mean we've heard the stories of grandparents not being able to go because they didn't get reservations like the younger siblings and kids did, and it's like. We need to come up with a way in order to mitigate that problem.
Well, that is exactly what yield management does on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. You're exactly right. Everything you're saying, and those stories are heartbreaking. But theoretically, yield management does that when you buy your plane ticket or your hotel room at a specific time, you're getting the best bang for your buck. So you're paying $190 for a flight when other people on the day of they're paying $380 and they're sitting right next to you. That's the yield management process. So if for example Disney went away from the Magic Keys and then now Tuesdays and Wednesdays the tiered pricing it flatlines for them and their predictable revenue because they know what they're going to charge, but they just they want the reservations filled and it becomes the price sensitive or able to go on the off peak or prime times. So it's just part of the game.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, and we talked about this a little while ago, OG, about how maybe they can fix the Magic Key system, and I'm surprised they didn't debut with a point system and not a day system. Like they have a day system now, right, where you reserve your day, right? But no matter what reservation you make, the days all kind of equal in terms of value. The Magic Key system probably would have been better as a point-based system in that some days are more valuable than others, right? So it's like maybe you get like 10 points. But hey, you want to go at Christmas? Maybe that's 4 points. Whereas if you go on a random Tuesday, that's 1 point. That kind of thing could actually end up being better for Magic Key holders than the system they have now, just based on that variable pricing model.
Well, I think the big problem with the rollout is that I think... Because remember, we heard a lot of rumors of like leading up to the Magic Key rollout. There were big changes coming, and then we got the program, and it's basically just a rebranding with reservations. I think they
kind of like Genie Plus. No, go ahead.
I think they wanted to do those big things, and I think for some reason they got scared and they backed off. But the problem with that is once you incorporate the reservation system into the annual pass program, the game changed. And they're trying to take a square peg and shove it into that round hole, and it doesn't work. And we saw that with the class action lawsuit, where it says you're applying the old rules, which is the blackout calendar, to the new system, which is the reservation thing.
Intentionally misleading.
That's what I thought when the Magic Key system came out, right? Because I kind of tried to tell people, hey, this is not the same system. We were experiencing it at Walt Disney World and seeing the vloggers go through it. I'm like, hey, guys, maybe we don't jump into the Magic Key system until we know for sure that this is going to work out here. And I try to tell people, they didn't listen, and now we have lawsuits. Oh, God.
Well, one thing that comes to mind for me from the business side is I'm convinced that, well, obviously things are changing because they're not perfect and they're not working. So things will change to some degree, but I think they're going to change, and they knew all along they were going to change. They're just waiting for that period, because remember, in the same month, everybody got all the Magic Keys that they have. Essentially in the same month or two, which means they're all up for renewal in the same month or same year.
Right.
Which is also not what they want. They obviously want that dispersed. So what's going to happen now? We just had the Q1 report, and Q2 is going to have Galactic Star Cruiser and things of that nature. And the way they are going to strategically do this in some way or some fashion is when things are going to hit the book. So they're going to go that year, because now the year is up. So they're not going to do it this quarter, but then maybe the 2 quarters after that or whatever, that's when the floodgates begin to open with new pass systems somewhere down there, because ultimately what they want is they're going to want, if the program remains in place, they're going to want renewals to take place every single month, not on 1 month.
Yeah.